This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for Tracing Your Steps with Tracy. And I think it's going to be a very interesting trace that we're going to do today because the last time we had you on, it was right before Thanksgiving, and you were planning on having a very small family get together. Um, you were all taking all the right precautions for COVID, and best that most of us could do. You had Thanksgiving dinner. And right after Thanksgiving dinner, just about, I started hearing things that you weren't feeling well.
Right.
And is it true at first you didn't test positive for COVID?
I tested several times negative. Um, I tested right before Thanksgiving, I tested negative, and twice in December. And then on December 28th, I tested positive.
And yet all along you had these symptoms
Mhm.
that made you think, I know in the beginning you thought maybe it was a sinus infection. Um, and what I think is important for us all to understand that this virus is so out of control and misunderstood.
Right, right.
Many of us may have actually have had the virus and
Yes.
have not known it, treated it as something else, and luckily we weren't um, at that end of the spectrum where you needed hospitalization.
Yeah.
Although you were in the hospital.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
tell our listeners what it's like when you get that ill, you're taken to the hospital, but you can't have your family around you.
Oh, it's heartbreaking. I had there's several times, honestly, I felt like I should go to the hospital. I never really had huge breathing issues, but my oxygen, I had a pulse ox, went down to 93, and that was the lowest. It kind of hovered between there. Um, but I went to the doctor because I had swelling in my arm and in my leg. And my doctor had me go to the urgent care beneath him because he's been working from home during this because he must have some autoimmune issues.
Yes.
So, I mean, he stayed right with me. I could text him anytime with my chart, but he said he wanted me to go to the urgent care beneath. And so I did, and they took one look at me and called the ambulance and
Wow.
said that they were worried it was blood clotting because of the intense swelling, and the way I was feeling. I was feeling the crampy, achy kind of like Charlie horse-ish.
Yep.
Um, so luckily, I do know some people that were in the ambulance that showed up, so they comforted me. I've been friends with them for a long time, so it was nice. But Aubrey was on the way to her boyfriend's house and she turned right around and she made it right as we were pulling out, I believe. Took me to the hospital. They would not let her in. They wouldn't they wouldn't let anybody in the lobby. So Aubrey and Johnny waited in the car and Ryan actually um he got me through Facebook because I had no reception. Um
Yeah.
and I still tested positive. They still test you when you go in. I was still testing positive for COVID, but my doctor there, they didn't think I had an issue because my blood work came back. So I didn't get admitted. They let me go. My blood work came out fine, but my doctor still was questioning if I had a blood clot. So they made me go get ultrasounded and all that stuff. And luckily it wasn't. It's a part of COVID, I guess, that there's some weird symptoms people get, like swelling and
Interesting.
odd places. There's been eyesight issues. I'm in a couple support groups that meet on Facebook because I had some friends that got me into them that had COVID. There's so many odd symptoms you just don't know.
Sure.
It's so scary not knowing and being in the hospital. And all I could think is this is the I mean, because your mind automatically goes to the worst case scenario. Oh my gosh, they're gonna admit me and I'm not gonna come out, because I was still coughing. I still was running a temperature. I ran a temperature for 32 days straight. And I thought they're gonna admit me, and I'm not gonna see anybody. Like, you automatically go to the worst scenario,
Mhm.
and then gotta talk yourself out of it.
Well, that's part of your personality too. I mean, I think everybody in that initially
Mhm.
automatically thinks the worst. You don't have anybody there other than the staff, and the staff is we already know they're tired, they're worn out, they're
Yeah.
giving the same answers over and over again. So you're not getting really the answers you're looking for.
My nurse actually made me feel pretty good. It was a man, and I wish I remembered his name because he had COVID twice,
Wow.
and he's like, "You're gonna be okay," you know? He was very, very confident that everything would be okay because he had been through similar situation, and, um, so he kinda talked me through it because I was panicking.
And I think that's normal.
Mhm,
Okay, so for anybody listening, yeah, we're all gonna panic. I have gotten the vaccine, and the first vaccine, just a sore arm, no big deal.
mhm,
Um, Went to work the next day, I was absolutely fine. But on my second one, um, the only question they asked me was, how'd you react the first day, first shot? I said, fine. They said, oh, you'll be fine. And I was for about, 8, 9 hours.
mhm.
And then it hit, and hit so bad that, um, I was fighting it. It was like, "I can't feel this sick. I'm supposed to be working tomorrow."
Right.
Um, and if I'm this sick, thinking too, "Oh, I'm gonna have to go into the hospital," even though I knew it probably was the
Mhm.
vaccine, for
Right.
36 hours. It was horrible. And when
The
my
achiness that
aching
you felt.
fingernails hurt,
Mhm.
and so you can understand that. It's like,
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
I couldn't lay down in bed because I was cold, but the blanket on my toenails from it hurt. Absolutely.
You know what? I had the weirdest symptom, and my doctors are like, "I've never heard of that." I felt like I had mastitis in my breast. I'm just gonna say it where, after you breastfeed and you feel you
Yep.
hurt, you have double bras on. I even blankets touching me, I couldn't move. It hurt to breathe. It was awful. And then a friend that I worked with called me, and they were checking on me and said that she had a friend that was in the hospital that had the same symptom, and they kept saying that they thought she was crazy. And I said, "Well, what happened to her?" She passed away that day. So I was
Oh,
like,
no.
"Oh, no." She's like, "I didn't wanna tell you that," but that symptom lasts me like 5, 6, 7 days. It was awful, awful. I can't even tell you. And still the sleepiness. But I've had friends, including you, that have said, after getting the 2nd dose, they're like, "I can't even imagine having it," you know? I had a friend, she's like, "I should've" my friend Amy, who's been on with us before, she goes, "I should have brought you more stuff," and I'm like, "You made me a blanket." There's not and drop groceries off. There's nothing else you could have done. But, yeah, and there's just weird things I still have. I get tired super easy. I mean, I can't do what I used to do, and I'm trying to get back at working out, but difficult.
Uh, you know, the thought of COVID, it has bogged many of us down, okay,
Mhm,
whether you've had it or not. Um, you know, I think a lot of us have found excuses, um, not to do certain things.
mhm,
Um, And some of those excuses are legitimate because you are fatigued or something is
mhm,
hurting that when you call your doctor says that shouldn't be.
mhm,
Um, you know, we started a new series here on women's medical issues. And that's why I was so glad that we had this time today to talk about what you've been going through,
mhm,
because more often than not, when a woman gets ill,
mhm,
the doctors and nurses sort of pass it off a little more than they do on a man. And I just think it's because women are the nurturing ones that
mhm.
they assume that, well, if you're complaining about something, it's probably not as bad as what you're saying.
Right, right.
And the reality of it is we have to we have to start listening better to each other. Um,
Absolutely.
because from that second vaccine, of course, I sort of correlated it to the vaccine. My
Mhm.
husband had it too, but he got a headache. Okay.
Mhm.
When he has a headache, he can sleep. So
Mhm.
he slept off his 36 hours of a headache.
Right.
Me, I couldn't sleep because everything ate. I can't sleep with a headache. I had the headache. Um, and when I called my doctor to say, what can I do? He said, you just have to wait it out. Although a girlfriend of mine called me and said, you need to drink a glass of water an hour. You have
Mhm.
to hydrate yourself.
I'm still
Yep.
doing it.
And the other thing she said was, you need to just relax. I don't care if you're sitting up, lying down, you know, standing in a corner and relaxing, however you
Yeah.
can do it. She said, get away from the computer. And that was
Mhm.
my big problem. It was like, well, I wasn't working my weekend job, so I'm going to do the radio stuff.
Mhm.
And I was making mistakes. So when you talked about COVID brain,
Oh, awful.
it's I said and did things in 36 hours that, somebody should put a piece of tape over my mouth.
I I cannot remember. I mean, I've always been had AD adult ADHD,
Yeah.
okay? Or ADD actually. I'm not hyper. I wish I was. More energy. But the COVID brain is so different. Like before I'd go leave a room and I would start doing something else and then go to another room to do something, but then start nothing. I had like piles all over, I mean, and I never finished anything. COVID brain, I can't even remember my words sometimes. How to spell something simple. I mean, I'll ask Aubrey and she's like, Mom, you can't she's like, "Don't blame it on COVID. It's not COVID." I'm like, "It is.
Yes, it is. Yes.
It is." I'm like, "I can't remember anything." I'll forget I'm cooking, which I did sometimes with just my ADD symptoms, but I mean, it's bad, and people don't understand that, and the headache is still there too, by the way.
So
I get that.
you're still
I
getting the
still
headaches.
get, like, a burning headache, and my scent's not back either.
So before Thanksgiving, when we talked,
Mhm.
um, you thought you had a cold, obviously, and you were testing negative. So did you take any precautions at that point?
People at work had it around that time, so I was worried, but I mean, the family, they once I got a negative test, I had the lab test done, not the rapid. The rapid
Okay.
does come back a lot negative, or fake false positive.
Yep.
So I felt pretty confident that I was okay, but I mean, I wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't doing anything extra. I was just hanging out at the house, having my groceries, go and pick them up.
But in the meantime, here's Aubrey, who's what, 17?
She's 18.
18. Oh my gosh.
She's gonna be 19 here soon.
Oh, for all you listeners, I remember her when she was just like almost a toddler. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's sort of scary. Um, but here she
Aging
is
us.
going to school and working, then
Mhm,
coming home to a mom who's not feeling well,
mhm.
um,
Yeah,
and becoming an adult, very, very, very quickly and having to deal with um, the fear of COVID.
and yes, yeah.
How was she really handling it?
Honestly, I think she's still, because she's even said things, "I'm glad you're okay." She actually said that times she was trying to stay strong for me. I'm gonna try to not get teary-eyed. But, she was worried she was gonna lose me because I was really sick. And people that aren't around or haven't had symptoms don't understand how bad it can be. Um, I'm very fortunate I didn't have, like I said, the breathing issues,
Right.
but people don't understand how the other things affect you. I was in bed for literally I'm going to physical therapy because I was in bed for so long. And when I still do things, my oxygen still drops. And it scared her. And she didn't lead it. She didn't never let on that it did until afterwards. When Ryan got sick, she says, I can't lose another parent. I can't go through this again. So
Wow. That
yeah.
yeah. S
And you just don't realize how much it is weighing on her. And her brothers have been her strength. I'm telling you, she can text them. Johnny in particular has, and Zach's far away, but we have this group chat and everybody, we talk daily almost. So, I mean, she had support if she needed it, and of course, Terry and Melissa were good too.
Well, that's always nice to know, and we know that,
Mhm.
of all people, Terry, I'm sure, is very aware of what's going on with COVID, and,
Yeah.
um
He works in the industry,
right,
being at CVS. So,
and it's scary, and I'm at that point now when people tell me, you know, it's not as bad as what they're all saying, and, you know, I don't need the vaccine or whatever. That's a personal choice if you choose not to get the vaccine. But
right,
my comment is if you don't get the vaccine, even though I've had it, I don't think I want to be, um, any more than maybe 10 feet away from you, uh,
right.
because we've gotta stop the spread
Yeah.
of this disease, and I know
Now,
we're taking all the right precautions, but
right.
people had to live.
No, right now I feel like superhuman because I have like all these antibodies. But yeah, my doctor said that at first they said three months I could get it, the vaccine, and now they're saying 5 to 6 months because the symptoms that you get after you've had COVID are worse with the vaccine, getting it not undealable, obviously.
Yeah.
But the first shot you feel symptoms, and then the second one you're down a couple days. Just Talmadge, we our teachers just finally got the vaccine and they got it and they had to give them another extra day. They actually called school off because they needed that day to recoup. The
Well,
weekend actually
I
to
have to
recoup.
tell you, yeah, when we got our second shot, now we got the Pfizer, which supposedly the side effects are not as strong as
Okay.
Moderna. Um, but when I started getting sick that night, um, I kept thinking to myself, "Is it because I don't wanna go into work tomorrow?" I mean, I was, like, beating myself up.
Yeah.
I can't really be sick. And then, that next morning, um, I turned to my husband and I said, "I don't think I can get out of bed." And he was moaning, and he never moans with a headache. He just gets up, takes 2 Tylenol, whatever. And he said, "Can you get me the Tylenol?" I was like, Are you kidding? I can't even move, but I'm gonna get up and get you," which I did because I
Because we're
thought maybe
nurturing.
yeah, right? And I thought maybe he was worse than me, okay? Um, but at that point, we did separate for the rest of the day. We knew
Mhm.
we had to. And
Yeah.
the scary part was that just days before that, or week before that, Alex had found out he had been exposed to COVID. So the day we went for our vaccines, he went for the COVID test.
Yes.
And luckily he was negative. He
Yes.
was showing no symptoms. But here are three adults in this, you know, condo. We don't have a lot of extra room.
Mhm.
We all had to separate.
Yeah.
And so it's a real thing.
Yeah.
And
Like
that
I said, I still have to take naps. I mean, it's actually kind of crazy. And I have some friends, thank goodness, that have had it, and they're like, "You have to remember you've had COVID." And when people say you're fine, shake it off, you take that nap, you remember that. My friend Carrie she was the one who said it to me. Because not a lot of people aren't talking and telling you they have it is another thing. They're hiding it as a secret instead of talking about it so people know, hey, some people may just get a head cold or not have symptoms, but there's some people that get extremely sick. And not everybody ends up in the hospital, but you know, we're battling it at home because if I woulda went, like before, they send you home, you know, if you're not so your symptoms aren't that bad. But she kept telling me, she's like, I had it before Christmas or over Christmas, and she said that I'm still, and this is like in January after I've already been in bed for like, I want to say 13, 14 days. And she said, I'm still in bed. I work from home. You know, you need to take that time. You need to sleep. You need to, not do as much,
Well,
because doctors don't even know what to do. So it's almost, there's a whole world of people out there with COVID that you don't even realize. There's support groups out there. They've made new, I was the first one at the physical therapist that they made that new code. They were like, this is the first time I put this code in, because it's a COVID code, So I don't know. There's good days and there's bad days. And I already lost track of what your question was.
no, but that was the perfect that actually was the perfect answer is, how do we go forward, okay? Um, yeah, we tend to look backwards at what we've been through. I'm sure there are times that you probably say to yourself, "I've been sick long enough, I should be okay." Okay? It's March 1st, and this started in November, and why aren't I, outside, or why is
Mhm,
it that I can't go look for a job because of all that time that's lapsed.
mhm.
But we don't have all the answers, like you said.
Right.
And if we don't take the time to get better,
Mhm.
then we're going to make ourselves worse and it's going to be even longer.
Right.
And that's why when they started talking about, you know, isolating and not being in large groups, and
Mhm.
people said, "Oh, I can't live that way." It's like, if you don't right now, it's gonna make things worse. Um,
Right,
and
right.
I have a lot of friends out in California that once things started to reopen, they went crazy themselves. It was like, oh, they had to go to
Mhm.
every outdoor restaurant they could. Well, 2 of them now have COVID, and they were safe for a year.
Yeah.
And I understand the need to get out, but there are
Mhm.
other ways of doing it, and you've learned that yourself
Yeah,
as well.
definitely. And I got it from my workplace. Several of the attorneys had it, starting in November. One had it, and then it kept going. We were passing it. Unfortunately, I got someone sick too from it. The one that took my temperature that day when I said I felt great when I went in the morning, and then by 1 o'clock, I'm like, I have a fever, and I'm like, check it, make sure it's working. And then she checked it. We cleaned a thermometer even, and of course we have masks on top of it. And then she literally 7 days after got it. So, um, it spreads fast, and it is scary, and people don't realize it. I
So
mean, there are people that still do not follow rules, and
right.
I mean, it's
It
it's
it
a whole new world now.
it
I
is.
hate to say it, but it is. Um, we've noticed through this time, everybody's had time to work on yourself. During that time, I really had to work on my mindset, because I kept going to, I'm not going to make it, because I felt that bad. I was so achy and nauseous and head hurt and burning and couldn't taste, and my throat hurt. There were so many symptoms that people don't know, or can't. When you have that stuff, you can't process that you're going to be okay, because you're like a fever for this long. And when you have a fever, even like a 99, which is a low grade, most of our temperatures run lower than
Right.
98.6.
Yeah, exactly.
So we
Yeah.
felt horrible. So you don't realize that things are gonna be okay. So I did, like I said, a lot of mindset work, try to be positive, because it's scary and you're by yourself. So, you know, you are, they say you're never alone if you're with yourself, but you feel
But you feel alone. Yeah,
alone. Right,
absolutely
right.
right. Yeah, and, and we all want that nurturer, whether it be
Mhm.
mom, significant other, somebody to be sitting there holding our hand and saying, "It's gonna be
Yeah,
okay." Um, but they can't because we're so sick.
yeah,
Uh, so
yeah. And that's where my friends stepped in, um, checking on me, calling me, and even though they can't be with me, they were there with me. and my cat, which after I found out, I have to say, you're not supposed to be around animals when you have it because they can catch it, and
Oh,
I didn't know, and my cat would not leave me alone. He knew I was sick. Um, he he didn't end up getting sick, but obviously, but, after that, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, should I just kill my cat?"
oh no.
But, because then they told me that, "You're not supposed to be around them," and I'm like, "I didn't know that."
Well, and it's sort of hard. Okay. I mean, how do you, I mean, you may have been able to farm him out for a while, but obviously, once you tested positive, you had already been around him.
Yeah,
So
exactly,
it probably
exactly.
was too late at that point. Um,
Yeah,
so, I mean, luckily,
right.
he has a strong immune
Yeah.
system and he's staying nice and healthy.
Aubrey, I was gonna say Aubrey too, because we're huggers here. So I'm just so fortunate that all of my kids are fine. Um, because like I said, we're huggers. I might have hugged her the day before. I got sick and didn't know I was sick.
Like, well, that was
So,
like when Alex came home and told us he had been exposed. Um, and his big thing when he leaves in the morning, when he comes home at night, he's
mhm.
become this bear hugger. And
Aw.
he walked in the door and he said, his hands are out like this, like, stay away, stay
Aw.
away. And I said, well, why? And then he told me, and he said, no, I need to go get tested. And he couldn't go till the next day. And so here we were separating ourselves. Um, but after he got tested, he did do the rapid, but they did a double rapid on him.
Mhm.
So he had to do it in both nostrils.
Yep, yep. And
Um,
they just started doing that. That wasn't happening before.
and then you do it yourself.
Oh, I was gonna say, when I was getting tested, and I questioned this, November and December, I went to a different place, and they would go all the way felt like all the way up to my brain,
Yeah.
but only on one side. Well, then my doctor said, "Well, what if you have a deviated septum and we don't know? You might not be testing positive because it was always the same nostril." So they sent me then to CVS to get it, and they have you do it in your car and
Yes.
you don't go as far up. It's so much. Aubrey didn't like it as much because she's got one that they just barely have to do anything at the Cleveland Clinic that they do for her, but and they did both nostrils, and that's when I came up positive. So it's possible that maybe this side is the side that should have been tested because
Interesting. Yeah.
that's something people don't know too. So,
But it was
um,
interesting for him to come home and say that he had to do it himself. And I just looked at him and I said, are you okay? And he goes, it's over.
it makes you sneeze, it
Yeah.
makes your eyes water, especially when the first way they did it where they went all the way kind of up. Oh, that was awful. Like
So
I get a headache thinking of it.
So, one last question. You brought up that you had your eyes examined before COVID,
I'm
okay?
sorry, can you say that again? I was
You had
losing the
your
computer.
that's okay.
Kitty cat.
You had your eyes examined before COVID. You made some, changes, um, but since COVID, they've gotten worse.
Oh, it's been awful. I'm okay, so I'm nearsighted. I can't see far away. And so they checked me. I could see everything close up, absolutely no problem. And I got this done the week before Christmas. Now I'm using 2.5 readers, and I can't see far away. Like things I could see just 2 months ago, I can't see. So I'm going back into the eye doctor. One of my friends actually has an issue that with their optical nerve, like Aubrey had actually, where they had some issues that it damaged the because what COVID does is it just inflames
Right.
everything. So their optical nerve was affected and they were having spots and they that like like Aubrey's got a blind spot. Well, he's having the same problem. Um, and so he's like, you got to get to the eye doctor if you're having that much issues and it's changed that drastically that I'm squinting to see anything. Um, he's like, you've had some issues. It could be your optical nerve. So I've made an eye doctor appointment. So I'll
That's
keep you posted on that. But
I
yeah,
certainly hope you will, because, um, what I find interesting, and once you said it, and now I know my eye doctor is correct. Um, I've been developing cataracts, but
Mhm,
very, very slowly.
mhm,
And I was due for my eye exam beginning of February. And I went in, and in 3 months, the cataracts have just like totally taken over. And I knew they had because when I'm indoors and I look a distance, I
mhm,
can't see it. Now, outside, it's not as bad.
mhm.
Okay. But like when I go grocery shopping, I can look to the front of my cart, but if I try to look past that, it's all blurry.
Yeah.
And at night, luckily I have not had to drive at night,
Mhm,
but I was in the car with my husband the other night and every light was double and triple. And the eye doctor even said to me, he said, it's either from the vaccine
mhm.
or I've had COVID without even knowing it.
Yep.
And it ripened the cataracts. And so, you know, mine should be resolved with cataract surgery, but
Mhm.
he's not making any promises.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My poor mom, speaking of cataracts, I hope she doesn't mind me talking about it, but when before they moved to PA and they were in Maine, she did she's she didn't realize how bad they were. I mean, literally couldn't see in front of her and didn't even realize because it was so gradual when she got that surgery. She's like, "I'm a new woman." She's lost all this weight and she's like, "I can see. I didn't realize how bad it was."
Yeah,
So,
that
surg
that is tough. So, but
yeah.
it was interesting that that's what the doctor had said. He said, "You may
Yeah.
have had it, or maybe it's from the vaccine. We don't know."
Yeah,
So,
and
but
I've asked friends before that, and I said, I've asked for a couple weeks, "Do you know anybody that had problems with their eyes after COVID?" Everybody said no, but I was so glad when I talked to the one guy that my friend that has had it and has issues. And then I kind of did some research in the COVID support groups, and it's been known. So they're like, make an appointment right away.
yeah,
Exactly why I'm having my headache. So it's kind of I get it inside of what Aubrey went through in some ways. Not that we want to,
no,
but
not that we want to, and we don't want Aubrey to get ill either.
no.
'Cause this is her senior year. This is the
Yeah,
year that she should be
yeah,
enjoying life the best that she can.
yeah.
Even though, will there be a prom at Talmadge this year?
They haven't said. I know girls are getting dresses. I've seen them posting them, but I don't know if there actually will be an actual prom. Luckily, she had a boyfriend when she was a sophomore, and he was a senior. Am I right? Sophomore, and he was a senior. Yes. And she got to experience it. So she's been to prom, so she knows it. Where some of the people in her grade may never know it.
Right,
They
exactly.
may never went.
Yeah.
So she's been fortunate. But I am hoping that we were just talking about I'm like, I always did graduation parties. Y- Do I do it? I mean, I know. I mean, what do you do? We did them out at the park before. I mean, so we could probably make people be apart. I don't know, give them each a slot of time.
Well, hopefully by summer, hopefully most everybody will have had the vaccine,
Yeah.
and you know,
I hope it goes back to normal for her sake. I feel so bad for the kids last year that missed out on all that, you know, first of all, they were born in 2001.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they've had some pretty rough times, so
Well, they will get well, so will you. And we will do this again in 2 weeks. We'll hopefully just turn the table and have something exciting to talk about rather
hope
than
so.
anything else. So you take care.
Thank
Give
you.
our love to Aubrey and tell her we thank her so much for taking care of you.
Thank you.
Have a great day, honey. Take care
Thanks, you
now.
too.
Bye bye.
Bye.